All right, it looks like I'm live again. I don't know what just happened there. So we're going to proceed forward and you can let me know in the comments here if it's not working, but it looks like it's going again. I don't know why it stopped, but I wanted to host this discussion today that I'm going to lead, and then I'm going to try to check momentarily every now and then if you have comments, but I basically want people to know in the greater public that transit-oriented development is for everyone, and planning should be a democratic process. And I realize that a lot of people just go to work and come home and enjoy their lives, and maybe they don't feel like they have enough connection to be involved. I know I felt that way for a long time, and so it's important to facilitate ways to get involved and to understand what's happening and how you can share your voice with those that you've elected. So, all right. So we're going to talk about the transit-oriented development plan. I'm only going to go over one page of it, which is on attracting investment. And then we'll probably do this again. I have a second camera going so you can see my chinchilla over here. Maximilian, he's joined us for this, so I want to keep it light. It's the end of the workday. So I'm going to go next to, so I run Downtown Framingham, Inc., which is a 501c3 nonprofit. And it was formed in 2009, but it wasn't really established in 2012 when they hired the first director. I've been working downtown for about 3.5 years now, and this nonprofit, we follow the Main Street America model, which really looks at promoting the area, working with small businesses, urban design and placemaking, and then also trying to do partnerships with other nonprofits to meet shared goals. And urban design and placemaking, a lot of that is what we're going to talk about today, along with economic vitality and promoting the area. And I can give examples of all of these and how we've done them in the past and how maybe we should do them in the future post-pandemic. So with the transit-oriented development plan, you're going to see this page here. It was pages 7 to 8 in the action plan our city came out with in 2015. It talked about capitalizing on the current market. One thing they talked about was looking at the Dennison apartments that are on Howard Street, just south of Jack's Abbey, and how those apartments have a long waiting list and they're at capacity, and how they've been noticing a trend at this time that apartments were at capacity and they didn't have to have very low rents either to be at capacity. So affordability is tough. A lot of people think if there's more supply, it'll be more affordable. Not always the case. Affordable is a relative term in some cases. It can mean workforce housing. It could mean affordable that is 80% or lower of the area median income. Public and private partnership, that's really that private investment that's coming in, working with the state and local governments and also federal governments to make really serious infrastructure improvements, roadways, lighting, things that affect quality of life. Those are huge. You want to zone for what's desired as well. They did change the zoning in the city to allow for higher densities. Often that meant more floors of housing or projects that could go in. And then last, investing in transportation. I'm not going to go over this right here, but this was part of the potential. This is a whole topic that will be covered again. So I want to do these more routinely and have ways to communicate with everyone more routinely too. So it looks like we do have a couple people watching, and yeah, it's working. Perfect. All right. So this is recommendations to attract investment. So one of these was to adopt changes to enforce central business district zoning, really looking at bringing businesses in along with individuals, roots before retail, they call it, and also making sure that we have a healthy stock of commercial and retail and diversification of those. And there are a lot of properties downtown that aren't commercial, that are neither commercial nor residential. So just looking at the different stocks of those quantities and how we can move those to be better for the longevity of the area and to bring investment to areas that have been long ignored. As you know, I'm very passionate about Framingham and downtown and the safety of the area and the welcomeness of the area. So the TOD Action Plan, it called for promoting success through incremental projects of varying size. So they really wanted to start small and build the projects up. And it said work with developers on adaptive reuse. projects. So a couple of those, 20 to 40 units in size. So I'm going to go over a couple of those in the next couple slides here, and looking at those and why adaptive reuse is really important for those historic buildings that we have downtown. A lot of times their historic nature means they can't be raised and they need to be protected. But when you're making the energy efficiency and the HVAC upgrades, they can go into millions of dollars oftentimes to meet the state building code. So look for opportunities for public-private partnerships and incentivize development of local programs. I was just working with someone yesterday that was interested in using the facade program to update a historic facade that had been long ignored. So those are options that I am excited to work with the city and partner with them on. All right. And then I participated in a webinar today by City Age, and had people from the US and Canada actually, and it was all over the country. And they were talking about this concept of suburban, not suburban and not urban, but really merging those two together, because a lot of people are moving to the suburbs. You have these edge cities like Framingham, and people are actually, when I started studying city planning, everyone was sort of moving to the city. That was in 2009, 2010. And then lately, more people are moving out of the city in the last couple years, and they're moving in more to these suburbs, but they still want those elements, those characteristics of the urban lifestyle to follow them: the walkability, the bike paths, the vibrancy, getting what you need, living a sustainable lifestyle. So what they're looking at is, the schools, the crime rates, they want them to be lower. Like I mentioned, but protected bike lanes. Restaurants are a huge deal. They want the rents to be lower than what you would find in a massive city like Boston, for instance. And then really good public transportation. So that meets the needs, that still runs on a frequent basis. It may not run quite as frequently as, say, the Red Line or maybe the commuter rail, but finding buses that can run at decent frequencies. And then in this webinar today, they talked about drivers of growth in a lot of the cities across the country and some of these suburban areas. And one of those was arts and entertainment. And I've been super excited. Pre-pandemic, we came out with weekly flyers and we talked about all the activities, and there's 8 commercial venues here along with the library. So there was a lot going on. And so I'm hoping that all of the places listed here, the Forest has been closed since the pandemic started. I don't think they can open until there's a vaccine, from what I understand. So, but all these places here were really catering to cultivating art, whether it was having an art gallery at Springdale or Exhibit A, or just places that activate the sidewalk with the live jazz like you would see at Foda Cow. Tropical Cafe and El Mariachi are really big about packing people in and having dance parties late at night. El Mariachi isn't here anymore, so actually I can take that off, but hopefully something exciting and vibrant goes into that space. So we're always looking for more places and more ways to, and there are more restaurants actually that are going to open this year that will be adding arts and entertainment. So be sure to look for that. So I mentioned the reuse and the retrofit possibilities. And if you look, you'll see there's 3 examples here. 82 Concord Street, I had a tour of this space that was last September actually. And in this space, they have 9 units that were retrofit, and this was by Mark Federico. And they're able to actually do shared parking with the Greater Framingham Community Church that is off of Park and Franklin Streets. And so they have these barn doors that they feature here. And I was working actually with Pablo Maya. He's a realtor downtown to make sure these were all leased out, and I believe they are. And last year as well, we did the grand opening last spring for the Amsden Apartments, and this project took over a year, I think, and there are 26 units in here. So you have 10, they have all these attributes to bring folks in, and they're able to come in at lower but fairly competitive rates for individuals. And the parking here is behind the Foda Cow restaurant off of Kendall Street. So 2 Kendall Street is the address here. And then here you have, and then these are all leased as well. There may be 1 or 2. Usually with a project, you're not going to be 100% leased. People will be moving in, moving out. But as far as we know, it's, fully occupied is typically 90-95% leased. And then here you have 68 South Street, again, fully occupied. And this came out last March of 2019. They have underground parking. This was new construction, so they raised the building that was there, and then they have this. The beauty of the new construction is you really can do the energy efficiency features. If you come to visit someone here, you can press the doorbell and there'll be like a facial recognition camera in each unit, which is pretty cool too. And this project also donated to the Irving Square Pocket Park that should be opening later this year as well. So these are 3 of the small projects. These 2 here, 82 Concord and the Amson project, that's an example of the retrofit reuse. When we talked about attracting investment on this slide here, about 20 to 40 unit size projects, building up that critical mass, proving that the market exists, that there is demand here, and showing that. And so that looks like it's very relevant that these small retrofit projects could support larger projects that have come in. I'm not going to get into Alta Union House and some of the other projects today because that would be another session. So I basically am going to talk about the small projects, and then next I'm going to go into some of the other possibilities of what can happen moving forward. So some people, sorry for the shaky video here. I shot this last Sunday. I was sort of reaching above my head. But basically this is 71 Bishop Street. So this is just kitty corner north of Jackson Abbey parking lot here. You can see, and this property is 90,000 square feet. You're going to have 6 different opportunities to lease 15,000 square foot sections of this, and there'll be 3 small buildings in the rear of the area. The construction will start next year, 2021, and this is Claire Properties from Hudson, actually. So this is going to be storage primarily, I believe, and then it's also going to have retail opportunities as well. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. Hopefully there's demand for the retail. That's something that's exciting that can bring people in. It looks like it has decent parking, so they could have activities in the day and possibly different activities at night. That is something they're looking to do in that area. So keep your eyes peeled for that. We'll do our best to cover the progress as the groundbreaking for this comes. But they did level. There was a building here that was leveled, as you can see in this movie video. All right, and then, in this area too, one thing in the transit-oriented development plan was, I'll go back to the cover here. One thing in this plan was making sure not just the sidewalks on 126 are good, but the sidewalks on the feeder streets, because you can't have a walkable area if the properties along the feeder streets, Clinton Street, Clark Street, there's numerous, Irving Street, that those also need to be in good shape as well. So hopefully with the project on Bishop Street here, this will help provide some investment for these feeder streets. And this is where knowing what's going on at the planning board is helpful, and the ZBA, Zoning Board of Appeals. A lot of people, they come home and they just want to hang out, eat, and they don't want to watch these meetings. I know I don't want to watch them. It's like I'm doing this all day anyway, but it's important to stay tuned into what's happening, and by watching these, then you can stay informed. So perhaps it's my job to watch these better so I can share with the public what's going on in that area. And the cool thing is they are recorded, so I can go back and look at them. Next, this came out last week, and this is the Waverly Street project, also South Street. This is that 1 block project that was covered pretty heavily in the source, and there were a lot of questions about what would you like to see here. And I heard over and over again, or in the comments, something family oriented, bowling alleys, theaters, parking structures were also brought up. So this property here, 358 to this is typo, 362, my bad. So 358 to 362 Waverly, 1.95 million. So this is just the El Mariachi, the green building, and the parking lot. So just those 2. Those are the 2 eastern parcels right here. And so the business owner, he didn't want to continue. He actually told me back in January he was going to close. And then I think when the pandemic hit, he's working on a new project down the street, actually, that should open hopefully before the close of the year. And then this second one that's adjoined is going to be 360 Waverly. That's this giant kind of parking lot you see here, it was made into a makeshift parking lot. That's at 360 Waverly. And then behind it, you can't really see very well, it's kind of covered in heavy brush. That was 16 South Street. So you're looking at 0.758 acres here combined. And both these are in the opportunity zone. So anything along Waverly Street and south is the opportunity zone, which means you get a cut on, you get tax credits and things of that nature that I'm not going to get into very specifically. I don't have my tech support sheet right in front of me. But the environmental side, I do know that there was some contamination here. It says the cleanup has been done and there are no deed restrictions to restrict what kind of properties are here, what pricing structures might be in place because of that. The price for this sale is not posted yet, so I will keep you posted and then we can get the word out on that. But really your vision about having something this is a very right in the heart of downtown, very walkable space. Obviously there's a lot of work that's been done here, and that's where it's important that when you work with your elected officials and you tell your friends, you want to, even if you've lived here all your life and you don't really care for Framingham, you want to frame it in a positive way as much as possible for the positives of the area, because people are going to listen to and get excited more, and possibly the kinds of businesses that you want, they're not going to come if you're not sharing it in a positive light. And it's not to say don't be realistic, but it's to also say you want to get people excited about the possibilities and the opportunities that could happen here. And you never know who you're talking to that might be related to some investor and that might have a connection to someone. And so there's always that secretness, like you have to be in certain circles to have an investor come around. But I talk to investors quite frequently, actually, so it's very interesting their perspectives on the growth that's here. And then this webinar that I did earlier today that talked about, we'll go back to this one, that talked about Suburban. It was really saying that Framingham is a hot spot right now, and we're we're between Boston and Worcester, and obviously we have transit-oriented development happening, and it's continuing to progress, and we want to keep the momentum going. But we want to also, if the economy that you want to have and those businesses that we don't have, or those amusements or entertainment centers that we don't have, if you want to have them, then you have to, keep the eye on the prize, basically, and, talk well of your community, speak well of your community, and get involved as well, and let them know what you need, and really patronize the businesses that are doing arts and entertainment, are trying to better the area and drive that foot traffic. Like we have all this foot traffic usually on the weekends coming in and supporting. So that's Waverly Street. We went over that. So next we're going to talk about Tedeschi. So this is an interesting one. Chinchilla's trying to take a nap. So this is going to be 428 Waverly Street, and this was the 7-Eleven. It looks like the lease with 7-Eleven has ended. The commercial realtor just recently changed, which is very interesting. They just put up a new sign here. You can see it in the video. The old realtor sign came down. The new realtor sign went up. The price actually went down. It was 3.1 last year, and now it's down to 2.25 million. And I know the roof was recently fixed. I did have a meeting with the property owner back in January. We have decent acreage. One thing that businesses like to look at, I talked to Aldi's about this spot last year, and they had already committed to going into meeting. So at this spot, 25,000 plus vehicles a day, so you have a lot of visibility, 8,000 plus population density. We know people love grab and go in this area when they're coming to and from the train or wherever they're going. So something that's simple. We know people want more grocery stores. We have some really mid-sized grocery stores like Tesoro and Sierra, but having something that's a little bit bigger and affordable and maybe different varieties as well. So business diversity is a big deal, and that's why you should be involved in transit-oriented development. It's business diversity. We don't have a drop-in gym downtown. There's some other things we don't have that we've been asking for. We're going to start to see those things materialize, but it only takes, talking to everyone, basically, really promoting your area. It can't just be me. I get paid to promote the area, but it has to be our team effort to promote the area. All right, moving on. TD Bank. So this is the one, I don't know what's going on with this, and I'm sure there are people out there that do, that work in real estate, and it was for sale, it was for lease and for sale at different points, and it was last sold in 2017. So there's two properties here. There's 74 Concord and 15 Park. So 15 Park is the one that's at Park and Franklin Street. But what's interesting is last year, I want to say spring, May of 2019, there was a parking lot. I'm not sure, I want to say 80 to 100 parking spaces over there, don't quote me. But it was sold for $1.8 million in 2019 to a separate developer group. So that means that we need a parking structure downtown now, because people would have parked there and come here if it was used in that sense like it was before. So that's where also getting involved is important, because when a project or developer and investor comes along, that's where the democracy needs to come in and say, these are the impact fees or the mitigation fees or whatever. These are the investments we want to see the developer do on top of building a mixed-use project. We want to see a parking garage, or we want to see a splash pad, or whatever it is nearby that would better the community. So that's where people need to go to the meetings, and it can't just be the same people talking. Like, that's awesome that if there's usually like the usual bunch of folks talking, but really bringing people out of the woodwork and getting more people involved about what the opportunities and the potential are, but what are those impact fees too that those developers can bring. If we need structured parking downtown, then that's obviously something that people can raise their voice about. So when I find out what's going on with this, I will let you know. Nothing's in there unless there's another movie that's going to be shot in there soon. Maybe that's why it's not on the market. So I thought it was going to go on the market last summer, and so I'm sure if things are quiet, there's usually a reason why. So we'll just keep our eyes peeled and we'll stay observant. So next I'm going to move to 20 Concord Street. This is a really cool spot that I like, and I kind of had this philosophy that if you were having some kind of investment opportunity in 20 Concord Street, the folks that you're bringing in could park at 1 Howard Street, because there's nothing going in there right now. The 1 Howard Street developer brought a project to the planning board last year, but it wasn't approved because it didn't even meet the parking requirements. So at this point, if there were classes in here or a drop-in gym, this is where I would like to see it, and individuals can park on 1 Howard Street. And part of transit-oriented development is having the developer pay for wayfinding signage too would be huge, because it's very hard to know sometimes where to turn right, or all the places that you cannot make a left, which could be complicating things if you're not familiar with the area. So we want people to come in, but we want them to know how to get around. And this is kind of a tricky spot if you're not familiar getting to the 1 Howard Street parking lot. But Ron Isaacson's the property owner, and he really wants me to push this, so we hope that we can get this space occupied. The Jiu-Jitsu studio next door, pre-pandemic, had a lot of foot traction. There's a great dental spot next to this at 32 Concord Dental. So if you know anyone that's interested in any of that work, that would be awesome. Alright, so keep your eye peeled on this if you know anyone. Alright, next we're going to go and talk about Irving Square, which I'm passionate about. I called this Burka Square in the past. Here's a picture of Burka Square. This is facing north, so these sticks here that you see, those are going to be the guards for the train tracks. And you can see it's a pretty bustling area. I mean, there are people walking around in some buggies. I mean, there are lots of cars coming through here every day. A lot of people do see this as a pass-through to Ashland or Holliston or any of those other communities when people are trying to get to the Pike. So on the right here, that's the Bullard building, which is like 12 Irving Street. And then past that, current day, that would be the Tribune Apartments. Other side, that's the Beaumont building. Mike Cedia is the owner of that. There's some fashion stores in there now. This is the Cricket Mobile. And just north of that is the 428 Waverly property. So let's move on. So this is it today. And earlier this year in February, before everything changed, I had some interns from FSU, I had a psychology intern and some others, and we interviewed the residents of the Irving Square Apartments in the Tribune building here. And then over on the right side was the Irving Square Apartments, Tribune Apartments, Irving Square Apartments on the right. And these are primarily housing elderly residents, some residents who have disabilities, and a lot of them, unfortunately, they don't feel comfortable with even inside in their units, never mind like going outside. So it's important, these vulnerable populations are living in affordable housing. They feel comfortable in their spaces where they're living. That's their home. We want them to enjoy it. We want them to use the urban spaces to express themselves. Maybe they're playing piano or busking or something of that nature, but it needs to be their elderscape, if I can call it that, and it needs to feel like their home that they can take ownership of and be proud of and feel, complete like anyone else would that had a huge retirement account. So if you go down this area at night, it's pretty dark. Like the lighting really just breaks off pretty quickly from Route 126. The sidewalks here past my face, in this area where the red line is on the left, crumbling sidewalks, and which isn't good. It doesn't make it ADA compliant. This road here, to me, it kind of seems like a super highway for car carriers and DPW trucks, commercial vehicles. We do have a lot of landscapers and whatnot that come down here. It doesn't make it great for transit-oriented development or pedestrian walkability. I would not bike on this road, ride a bicycle. So those are some things definitely to work on. 102 Irving Street's been vacant since January 1st, 2019. Before that, it was Danny Sullivan's, and before that, it was the Tavern, which I guess they had really good burgers there. And then across the street at 105 Irving Street here with this red arrow on the right end, that building's been condemned, environmental contamination. It's been vacant for many years. I talked to the realtor yesterday. It's been vacant for decades. This property at 105 Irving is part of the Massachusetts Storefront Vacancy Program, and these are all located in the Opportunity Zone as well. So there are investors. When I talked to the realtor and I caught up with him yesterday, Todd Glaskin from Coldwell Bank, he said that he had some, very interested parties that wanted to do some work at 105 Irving Street, potentially make it a small mixed use project where you would have business on the lower level and then residential above. Not too much residential. It would be parking on site and all of that, but enough that it would be feasible. And I was like, well, that's cool because hopefully it could make the area safer and it would attract an investor to go in or another business to go into 102 Irving Street. I'm very passionate about the safety in Burkett Square. I hear from the businesses a lot if they're not satisfied. Things have been pretty good this summer relative to past years. Peaceful coexistence of everyone, which is always great. So if you're, a human being and you know when the planning board meeting is and you want to talk and there are opportunities, like you could have a new, we don't have an LGBTQ plus entertainment venue downtown. That could be the first one we're sitting now, or just be a plain old entertainment venue, fun, exciting one, just options. And then work for, co-working, conferencing spaces. We talk about private partnerships and development. That's where mass development could get involved and give funding to help make co-working spaces or conferencing spaces. I think conferencing is going to be really important post-pandemic if people are working from home, but they need places to meet up. You add the lighting in and you get that safety. You can add more streetscape features. You can make the residents here help them, find ways to help them feel better. Do those sidewalk improvements that I talked about, make those ADA compliant. So investment here, I think, is very important, and we want to keep up with the progress that Framingham has right now and the momentum and keep that going. It's very important. So let's talk about next steps. So moving forward, you really want to protect and preserve the 2015 Transit-Oriented Action Plan to your elected leaders. Like, what gives it teeth to keep it going? And that's really asking the city, what are the benchmarks and measurable goals coming out of this TOD action plan that they can cite that would come from the officials from the city's mouth? When we did our business climate survey last year, we cited a lot of positives about employment, revenue growth, improved safety, and we really want to look at increasing the business diversification downtown. We have more food establishments coming. We don't have a creamery yet. We have another fine dining business coming in. So we are seeing more of that diversification the community's been asking for. And despite the pandemic, we had a couple businesses close, but we also had 2 open. So it's really no net change at all. We have an extremely loyal fan base downtown. So we're very, very grateful for that. And more than anything, it's just really staying focused and being part of the process and not getting, and I think that split there, that psychological, oh, nothing's going to change, or I'm not involved, so I can say things that aren't, really positive and focused on, improving and making the area even better than it already is. So I think if you have ownership over the results, if you worked here and this was yours and you had ownership and you had a way to get involved and say, if this development comes in or if this project happens, these need to be the impact fees. These need to be the improvements that we see in the community. So affordability also is a key component of the TOD action plan. And so finding ways to make sure, holding people accountable for making sure projects have that affordability key that could also include workforce affordability housing too. And I just want to give 2 updates. We have the Harmony Grove project coming up. This is going to be August 30th at 10 a.m. right here on Facebook Live. If you want to participate, you can go to downtownframinghaminc.org/Harmony Grove. So go to my website /Harmony Grove. And then we have the 5K coming up that I've been doing race training on every day. So we're going to do 3 weeks of free race training. And then the last 2 weeks will be for registrants only. You'll get a cool t-shirt, you get an enamel pin, you get a $7 gift card to Jack's Abbey. So we also have a video running the race route so you can practice running to the race route. So hopefully that is cool and fun, and we're going to do the best that we can making it virtual. We're highlighting different spirit stars every day, 31 of them in fact, for this event. And for Harmony Grove, we're doing a countdown with 14 individuals that have been known to make this great. So I'm going to sign off, but this is going to be recorded and then I will upload it so it can be shared again in its entirety. Thanks so much. Sorry for the delay, and I hope that everyone has a great Tuesday evening. Bye.